Thanks for listening to the Swearing In podcast, where you'll hear the origin stories of those who chose to serve. So ground your gear, take a seat, and listen up. The Swearing In podcast starts right now.
Welcome. I am Marty Smith, and this is the Swearing In podcast. Today is part 2 of my interview with Army Brigadier General retired Chris Petty. After leaving the active duty Army in 1991, General Petty joined the Colorado Army National Guard and took command of Charlie Company, 1st of the 131st Aviation Regiment in Eagle, Colorado. That unit ran the High Altitude Aviation Training Site, or HAATS. In 1994, he moved to Buckley Air National Guard Base and assumed command of Alpha Company, 2nd of the 135th Aviation Battalion. After getting promoted to Major in 1996, he became the Battalion Assistant S3. After 18 months, he was reassigned to become the Deputy Commander of the Colorado Weapons of Mass Destruction Response Team, which was later renamed to the Civil Support Team. After 2 years, he left to go back to the Guard and took over as the 2nd of the 135th Battalion S3. His next assignment was as the Headquarters Commandant of the Joint Force Headquarters of Colorado. Later, he assumed command of 2nd Battalion 135th Aviation Regiment, and in 2006, he led the battalion's deployment to Balad, Iraq, supporting Joint Special Operations Command. So this concludes your pre-brief. Now let's get on to part 2 of my interview with General Chris Petty. We left off. You had just taken command of the National Guard.
Okay.
And
So I just gone to the unit I talked about in Eagle with 15 Hueys.
no,
Okay.
I thought, well,
I'm unsure.
The one at Buckley, I thought.
Okay, so
Did you go to Buckley first?
No, I went up to Eagle
okay.
first.
You went to Eagle.
Took command of that unit where I talked about the old Vietnam guys
Yes.
and me.
I didn't realize that was Eagle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was up in Eagle.
What was that unit?
It was the first. It was the first of the 131st. Charlie Company, first of the 131st.
Yeah.
Assault Helicopter Company.
And it was an Eagle?
Yeah, it was in Eagle.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Weird. I mean, there's not a military unit in Eagle anymore. The reason the Colorado Guard did it was because we had a high altitude training school up there for helicopters.
Yeah.
So logistically, it made eminent sense because you've got to maintain helicopters up there for the school.
Sure.
You've got maintenance facility guys on full-time pay anyway. So now you're hosting a unit up there. So there was a lot of positive.
Was it a formal school that like people were getting certified?
Oh,
out
yeah.
of that?
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Yeah. In fact, the biggest customers were foreign militaries and special operations.
Wow.
Yeah, because it really, flying helicopters in high altitude is a dangerous business. You know, you talked about the snafu up on the Hindu Kush with the Chinooks and stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's power management. That's high altitude, drastic effects on aviation lift, helicopter lift. And if you don't have your shit together, you're going to die.
Wow.
So that schoolhouse has saved countless lives, I'm sure.
There was the infamous, is it SOAR?
The 160th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they around then or
Yes.
not till later? Oh,
They were around. Yeah.
Okay.
They were around even probably when I first started Eagle, although I didn't really know about them.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how they weave together at all, but the 160th definitely sent a lot of students into the HAATS. It's called HAATS, High Altitude Aviation Training Site.
No kidding.
And Colorado Guard runs it, and it's kind of world renowned. It's a small school, obviously.
Yeah.
They have like at any one time, it's like 8 to 10 students. I mean, that's it.
Sure.
And but yeah, it's fantastic.
That's what. That's what
So
we left off
I was
at,
up at
so.
Eagle as a young company
This was
commander.
92?
Yeah, this is 92.
Okay.
Young company commander. And I talked about the flying club, and it was kind of the old National Guard.
Yeah.
It's interesting when I got there, and I was kind of that first wave of active duty guys after the peace dividend. Remember the great peace dividend in 1991 or whatever? The Cold War was over. Actually, it probably started in 90 because it was before Desert Storm kicked off.
Yeah.
We didn't even know Desert Storm was going to happen because it was the big peace dividend.
It's like around when the wall came down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the wall came down in 89, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
After that, it was the peace dividend trickling through the Army and all services. And it was officers like me that are like, hey, I signed up to be a warrior. The future looks really boring. We talked about that last time. I might think about getting out. The Army's letting me out of a 5-year West Point obligation as long as I serve in the reserves, which I'm happy to.
Sure.
And so I got out, and the point of this story is I was kind of a first wave of officers coming out of the active duty Army, going into these National Guard units, which were, fine units.
Yeah.
But they hadn't been challenged with some of the rigors of, high intensity training, big collective training, goals and concepts. And so it was a culture shock. It was a bit of a culture shock. I was happy to experience the culture shock, but one of the things I'm really proud of is we built that unit slowly but surely into a really competent, fine-tuned air assault company from the ingredients of a bunch of great patriots, very good Vietnam pilots,
sure,
but no foundation of collective training and air assault operations and all that kind of stuff that really goes into complex Army aviation operations.
Well, in every operation.
Yeah. And so it was fantastic journey. Yeah. That little 2-year, 3-year journey was fantastic and rewarding.
Wow. Up at Eagle.
Yeah.
I had no idea
up in the mountains of Colorado. So you are pushing these single engine Hueys to their limit. You're at 11,000 feet routinely doing LZs and extractions at 11. Sometimes we're up at 12,000 feet. You talk to a regular Army aviator today that's not familiar with flying in the mountains, and then they'll hear 12,000 feet and go, holy crap. That's dangerous.
For sure.
Just the elevation.
Can you give me, you probably can't, but for us who don't know, we know there's less air, there's less lift.
Yeah.
But what's the single most common mistake you make at altitude?
Well, there's two things that kind of jump to my mind even after years of not flying. One is you have to anticipate everything. So if you see your landing zone in sight and it's 3 kilometers away, whether you're flying goggles or regular daytime flying, you have to anticipate, because when you get to that objective or that landing zone, you do not have the power to arrest your rate of descent and to come in like you would normally, but you're so trained as a regular Army aviator to be able to just pull the power, arrest your rate of descent, arrest your approach, land, everything's fine. But it's like pulling a 20,000 pound trailer, in your little pickup truck for the first time.
Yeah.
Really, really dangerous.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't brake like you thought you could. You can't turn like you thought you could. It just takes training. And so you've got to anticipate all your movements and reactions in the cockpit way early. And then the other thing is you have to have an escape plan. The biggest things, and when I was flying an Eagle, remember, we're flying in single engine Hueys. Mm-hmm. You get, because of and I won't bore your non-aviator listeners too much, but there's a reason helicopters have a tail rotor. The tail rotor prevents the helicopter from spinning through, the gyroscopic motion. Right. Like if you sit in a swivel chair and spin something above your head, your chair will actually spin the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Torque, anti-torque. Well, in the mountains, your tail rotor is losing lift too.
Oh.
And in some sense, because it's spinning faster, it's losing more lift. So now, all of a sudden, you run out of tail rotor effectiveness. And so your helicopter, as you come into that LZ and you start pulling up your collective to arrest your rate of descent and make your landing, all of a sudden your helicopter is spinning to the right.
Because
you've lost your tail rotor lift. Now your helicopter is spinning uncontrollably to the right and you can't stop it.
Wow.
The only way to stop it is to actually reduce power. See what I mean by an escape plan?
Yeah.
You've got to either fly down the face of that mountain off to the right, because your helicopter is going to spin to the right whether you like it or not. So you reduce power, which means you're going down now. You better be turning down right, down slope to pick up airspeed again, or you're dead.
Man.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, you don't think about those things.
Sure.
And that's why a lot of aviators to this day kill themselves in high altitude terrain, because they just you don't train for these things.
Well, sure. And you can talk it all you want, but until that pilot feels it.
Right.
Or feels the lack of it.
Right. Can you imagine driving down your car on the highway, and the moment you get in trouble, like you're blinded by mud on your windshield, normally you tap your brakes, right?
Sure.
Now I'm telling you, don't tap your brakes. You have to accelerate. All of a sudden. You've never trained for this.
It's definitely not intuitive.
It's not natural. In fact, your whole life you've been doing the opposite. Now I'm telling you to do the opposite of that.
Wow.
See, that's the problem.
Yeah.
And trust me when I say Army aviators, younger Army aviators, when you get in trouble, you pull power. You get out of there. Whether it's dust in the desert, you're blind, you can't see anything, you pull power. You get out. You want to get the hell out of there.
Pull and pitch? Is that what that is?
Pull pitch, which is the collective. Pull pitch.
Yeah.
But you can't do that in the mountains. It exacerbates your problem.
Man, that is crazy.
Counterintuitive. It's really the cause of a lot of mountain high altitude accidents. Yeah.
How many weeks did the school last?
No, this school is only 1 week. So it really packs.
Only 1 week?
Yeah,
so you just get some familiarization.
Classroom, fly, classroom, fly. You're flying your butt off. So, but yeah, it's a really high impact class.
So this was a national school run by the Guard.
Yeah, National Aviation School run by the Colorado National Guard. Yep.
God, that sounds like a match made in heaven. You never lose that experience.
No, you never lose the experience. And the great thing is you get all these aviators in Colorado that all of a sudden, I mean, these guys are good mountain pilots. So, So when we deployed to Iraq, which we'll get to, I'm taking with me pilots that understand power management. And when you're in an A model Black Hawk and you're loading it up at night at 120 degrees in the desert, it's the same thing as being at 12,000 feet as far as the helicopter cares. You don't have the power, margin of power to make any mistakes on the landing zone. It's the same thing. If your helicopter's too heavy, it's kind of like being at 12,000 feet and not having enough air. Yeah. So it really was a benefit to deployment, actually.
Okay, you just sitting there. How many classes do you do in a year?
How many classes does the school do?
One a month?
Oh, they're doing them back to back.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, they're doing it back to back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they'll probably do at least 3 classes a month.
Yeah.
They might get, I forgot how they work because I never worked full time at the schoolhouse. But I think it's 3 weeks of classes. 1 week they get to recover aircraft and do their administrative stuff that everyone needs to do.
Oh, man.
But great schoolhouse. The high altitude Army Aviation Training Site, HAATS, Colorado Guard. Awesome. It's a jewel of aviation.
And you stayed there till when?
I stayed there till, now I'm giving you approximate dates here, so you can't quote me on this, but I think I stayed there till 94.
Why would you leave?
Because I'm a captain. I'm a commander of the company. Yeah. There is no battalion up there. That's as high as you can go. Wow. So once you command that company, you can't stay. You're, a warrant officer could stay and, get promoted and fly, but a commissioned officer has to go to his next valuable assignment. Sure. And for me, that's a battalion staff job.
Even in the Guard, they want you to progress.
Same thing. Yeah. It's the same career ladder. In aviation, I told you last time, same flight requirements, same flying hours, everything. Yeah. Nuts. Yeah. It's kind of crazy, but really required.
Yeah.
So I went, so after that job, which was one of the highlights of my life. Yeah. Young captain taking over first company command with this culture clash. And it was such a great laboratory for being a good commissioned officer. How do you navigate this and get serious about training? And not that these guys weren't serious about training,
right?
But they didn't have some of the missing ingredients to put it together, in an Army way. That's all.
Do you have a first sergeant?
Yeah, I did. I had a couple of first sergeants. And they were good, but sometimes you get first sergeants that are really good mechanics in aviation.
Yeah.
And then sometimes as a first sergeant, they don't quite make the transition to first sergeant roles. But
I gotcha.
But if I recall, I had one really good, strong guy and one not so strong guy. But you muddle along.
You didn't have the conversation like, take it easy with that active duty stuff, sir.
No, I got that from my warrant officers. Yeah.
Yeah, of course you did.
Yeah, well,
Aviation's
right? A little different than most branches. I got that from my warrant officers plenty, but it was good. It was great. I think I mentioned last time that some of my finest, proudest things are when these old guys come up to me.
Oh yeah,
and they say, "You really, really made a difference in that unit."
Yeah.
And I've never been so proud of the Army since even during my time in Vietnam, as when we were in that flight company up at Eagle.
Wow.
And what we did with that
Wow.
unit. Yeah. I mean, that was a big compliment. Yeah. It was a wonderful experience. So I moved down to Buckley, and it was a bit unusual because they had an opening for a company command. So I just come out of company command.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, they have a company down in Eagle of Hueys at the time still, about to transition to Blackhawks, but Hueys. And I took command of Alpha Company, 2nd to 135th, stationed at Buckley, which Buckley was Buckley Air Force Base, as most people know it. And
not back then.
Yeah, it was, back then it was probably Buckley Air National Guard.
It was Air National Guard.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
And that was a different, that was a same type of company, but it was organized differently.
Oh, okay.
I think they were changing out the MTOs, the table of allowances for the units, and this company still had like the mess section and the motor pool and the maintenance section.
Really?
And all. So it was still a larger MTO, but it wasn't as big as the MTO that I came from Eagle.
Yeah.
So I don't remember exactly what the differences were, but it's not really that important. But the nice thing is I got to command a second flight company.
Yeah, that's pretty
Which
awesome.
is pretty awesome, as you know. So
I would have loved to have a second chance at command to correct all the things I did on the first one.
Exactly. I used to joke that, I mean, there's a lot of truth in this, but the first year you learn the job. The second year you make all your improvements and changes and good things. And the third year you get to just fine tune it if you're lucky. But nobody gets to stay a third year.
No.
So, the next guy's now learning and then adjusting.
That's kind of how kids go.
Yeah, it kind of is.
First kid, you're learning. The second kid, you got it a little bit better.
My wife and I would tell you, by the fourth kid, you're like, yeah, whatever. You do whatever. You're good. Amazing.
What was the mission at Buckley?
The mission was...
You weren't training, no. Yeah. I mean, you weren't doing school.
No, we weren't doing the school. Don't misunderstand me. I hope I didn't confuse you. So our unit wasn't running the school.
Okay.
We had the benefit of those guys that were full-time employees of the school being in our unit. Because,
I see.
As a guardsman, you always have to have a unit job.
A home unit.
Or as we call it, an M-Day job. You got to be drilling with a unit. You got to go to war with a unit.
Right.
Even if you're a full-time mechanic working in a schoolhouse somewhere, you still got to be assigned to a unit to train and go to war with. So we had the benefit of that schoolhouse for those people.
Okay. But
the unit didn't run the schoolhouse.
But you weren't conducting classes.
Right. That wasn't us. Yeah. So we went up there for drill and AT, our annual training, and that was
okay.
that. So when I came down to Buckley, it was a different mission. It wasn't as focused on the air assault mission because for some reason this MTO had changed. Like I said, the table of allowance and equipment had changed, and it was more air movement, aerial resupply. So it was a little less
more lift kind of.
Yeah, it was
missions,
more of a general support aviation company kind of role. Not that you couldn't be tasked to do an air assault operation, but it wasn't your mainstay. In Eagle, that was supposed to be our mainstay of our mission set. So, so of course, I took that very seriously. That's the pinnacle of utility helicopter operations is air assault. Right. It's the most difficult, demanding that you can get. So this unit was a little bit smaller. I don't remember exactly. I think it was 8 Hueys. It had the full support package stuff in it, which presented, nice capability if we wanted to just pick up and go to the field, which I did a lot. Yeah. I was one of those guys that said, hey, these soldiers are coming to drill to go to the field, get dirty, and go home tired. That was always my philosophy, which I think served us well.
Right. I mean, even though they're in the Guard,
Yeah, they want.
they're not joining the Guard to sit in the hangar.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted to sit at PowerPoint briefings and stuff. And
Right.
PowerPoint was just coming around about this time, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't want to bore them in classrooms.
Yeah.
Besides, this is serious business. I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen what the Guard has become. You've seen it over the
Sure.
last 20
Absolutely.
years. I mean, it is side by side with the active duty force, and it has to be.
And those guys are running more individual deployments.
They have
than-
to
yeah.
now, so there's no choice. I mean, if you take your role seriously as a commissioned officer, you're going to get your training done to preserve your soldiers' lives in combat.
course.
That's the approach. So I always had that top of mind.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where I was. So anyway, it's just a slightly different mission, just conducted down at Buckley. Good stuff. Great aviation operations. We did some air assaults, but mostly we focused on, resupply and sling loads, external load operations.
yeah.
I mean, still difficult stuff. And down here, we were tasked to do search and rescues for real in the mountains and firefighting operations to support the locals, which is firefighting operations. When you're dropping water from a bucket out of the off a sling load on a helicopter, you are right on the edge of, again, that power management.
I was gonna say,
same considerations. So
You release all that weight. You gotta compensate,
and
right?
you just
Oh, man.
picking up a full bucket of water, even if it's only, for a Huey, I think it was like 300 gallons of water or something, but still 300 gallons
It's a lot of
times 8 pounds. I mean, it's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm just saying it's still challenging
Yeah.
operations,
Yeah.
but good times, good stuff.
94 to
94 to, well, you didn't tell me I was going to have to look at my career timeline here. 94 to, I'm doing that from 94 to 96 probably. And then in 96 ish, definitely ish.
now you got to go to battalion.
Now I got to go to the battalion. This young hard charging officer has to do some
Did
battalion
you have
staff
major
time.
on by then? Or did they wait for you to get out of command?
No, definitely out of command.
Yeah.
In fact, I was sent to the Battalion 3 shop. So I'm the Battalion Assistant 3.
Ah, yeah. Love that job.
Yeah, you're just nugging away at plan. I mean, we don't have a plan section, but it's plans and operations and op orders. And, whether you're doing a field training exercise, as we call FTX, whether you're doing an FTX or going for your big 2-week annual training at Fort Guernsey, Camp Guernsey up in Wyoming, or Fort Carson down at.
I froze at both of those places.
Yeah, they're real good environments for
They
training.
are.
Both of them
they
are
are.
excellent. We used to love Guernsey more because Fort Carson was so restrictive on
Range
what
wise,
you can do. Yeah, and Guernsey was like,
I'm just glad somebody's up there.
we put out fires at
Yeah.
Guernsey that we lit on the range with our helicopters.
That's great
I mean,
double training.
Exactly. Yeah, Fort Carson would have freaked out with that concept.
Sure.
But we did it, and it was great. So anyway, we did a lot of that. But as a Battalion Assistant 3, you're basically doing the op orders for the unit movements,
Right.
the big field problems, and
You're
unfortunately,
probably coordinating land and
exactly.
everything.
And unfortunately, in the Guard, which is a unfortunate story, the unfortunate part of this side of the story is you don't have a lot of big higher headquarters require, overlays and intel and, mock-up op orders that you can then nest into with your planning.
Oh,
So you got to create lots of stuff from scratch.
yeah.
2 levels up, what's the division doing?
Yeah.
I'm writing.
You
got
gotta
to
write that.
Yeah. Because you don't have a big 82nd Airborne mother
No.
hanging over your head saying, here's what your plan is for the field problem. And here's
Right.
what your objectives are. And here's your situation. And here's the enemy situation. You don't have much of that. So you make it up and
Yeah.
you do the best you can. So I
Well-
spent a lot of time doing that stuff.
When did you put major on, sir?
Oh,
It's because it leads me into my next question.
I'm going to say,
You could tell me any year. I would believe it.
okay. I mean, I'm
Nobody's
really
gonna-
just at this point, I'm kind of guessing because it was just so long ago. Maybe 96, maybe 95, 96, somewhere in there.
So
I'm guessing.
you've gone well past your necessary commitment.
Oh
in
yeah,
the Guard.
oh yeah, I'm loving it now.
So, you are.
Yeah.
Oh, is that why you wanted to?
Yeah,
That's what I was going to ask.
I'm loving it. I mean, I've got a business in Denver. I'm feeding my family. I'm growing my family. I'm going to drill.
Well, at least you were in a job that you weren't like, this weekend sucks.
Yeah, I was never that guy.
That's pretty cool.
I have a good friend now who was my sergeant major when I was a brigade commander. We're still really close. We literally get together once a month.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And so we're really good friends, but we joke all the time about neither one of us showed up for work in the Army, or even when we were part-time guardsmen.
Yeah.
Because I'll get to it. I hinted at it last time. I wasn't a part-time guardsman for more than 7 years. I was 7 years as a part-time guardsman. So even as a full-time guardsman, I never dreaded going to work. It was always a healthy challenge. I'm not saying I was Pollyanna, whistling to work every morning. There was always,
but you never dreaded it.
Never dreaded.
Staying
I
in
never dreaded
like
going to work. I enjoyed it mostly every day. Again, I wasn't like excited to show up for work every day, but it was just in my blood. I just enjoyed it. I enjoy the challenges of it.
That's a good thing you were in the Guard during that time, because that was the big riff, right?
Yeah,
that was the big BSI offer and everything.
And we were getting a lot of good pilots from that too, some good commission officers from that too.
Did they let you double billet guys, or did they stay pretty hard?
No, they're pretty hard on your authorized slots and stuff like that. I mean, the state controls some of that, but they have certain numbers they have to manage to be accountable to DOD.
Yeah.
So you can't double slot a lot of people. Yeah. You can do it once in a while. But anyway, right. so back to my story. So I'm the assistant S3 for, 18 months or something like that. And then, I should have studied my timeline here with you. After that, I think I actually got pulled out of the battalion to do some non-aviation career broadening stuff.
Oh,
yeah. In fact, this is it. Okay.
Well, major's perfect.
So I get promoted to major, and the state aviation officer at the time. I think, it was a state aviation officer at the time. He pulls me in. He's a full colonel. He pulls me into his office and says, "Hey, Chris, you've done a fine job. It's time for you to get a non-aviation assignment." All aviators get some kind of outside of branch stuff, right, which is good. In hindsight, it's really good, actually. And I would encourage junior officers to do the same now. Mm. But at the time, it's like, oh, crap, I got to leave flying and being a good aviation guy. That's not going to help me. But he said, "Hey, we're starting up this new team at the request of the Department of Defense. There's only 8 of them in the country."
Wow.
And Colorado's got one of them. It's called a WMD response team, weapons of mass destruction response team. So this is prior to 9/11. This is when the Tokyo sarin gas happened. Yeah. You remember that?
Yeah, sure.
So all this stuff is happening at one time. So the Tokyo subway bombing with the cult that used sarin gas happened. And then some ricin attacks happened. And all of a sudden, the big Department of Defense is saying, wait a minute, we don't have a tool for this problem. We just don't. We got these big chemical brigades in the Army, but they're not fine-tuned. They can't support some FBI guy on a case in Denver, et cetera, et cetera. And we need these things. So they really kind of rushed to build these. Maybe it was 10. It was 10.
Well, didn't Hussein gas the Kurds around that time?
Yeah. He did. Let's see. His war. I can't remember that time. Yeah, his war was over in like 1990, I think, or was it 80 to 90, something like that. He had used gas on the Kurds. There was no debate about that.
Yeah, maybe I got my
But it was these civilian things that were happening. These things that were not warfare.
Yeah.
But they were clearly
they were getting them in the mail.
Ricin in the mail, the sarin attacks on the subway. There was another couple instances which my memory escapes me now. But it was enough that it got the leadership of the country to say, "Hey, Department of Defense, you need to develop a solution for this because we don't really have one.
That's pretty.
We have to be able to identify this stuff and quickly get on the ground and help our local law enforcement and responders determine what this is and the dangers, do the initial cordons and all that stuff." So these teams were absolutely nothing to do with aviation. Colorado got one of, I think it was 8 in the beginning. Now every state has one, and some states have 2 because they've proven so useful.
Huh.
So it's this small 22-person team. It was Army and Air. It was a joint team, which was unique at the time, actually.
Purple.
It was a purple unit, and it was commanded by a lieutenant colonel, who in this case was an Air Force officer. So the Army side of the Guard says, hey, we need a deputy commander. You're pinning on Major. The deputy commander slot's an 04.
Wow.
Major, Chris, will you go help build this team for us? Well, sir, yeah, of course. It sounds exciting. And it was. It was really exciting and interesting.
Sure.
They sent us to the Defense Nuclear Schoolhouse. They sent us to the EPA's hazmat training, the best of the best, like chemical, biological, and nuclear training that the country had to offer. So these 22 people are like starburst pattern around the country in schools for like the first year. Give or take a few weeks here. For the first year, we're just getting all our credentials. They were building the doctrine. This is brand new.
Golly.
So I was actually sent to the Pentagon to work for I'm pretty sure it was the Army G3 at the time, to help write doctrine for this new, what became the Civil Support Team. Now, your audience may have heard of CSTs. So these CSTs, these Civil Support Teams, were first called WMD response teams or some WMD teams or something, but they didn't like the name. Oh no, they were called raid teams.
Raid.
Yeah, they didn't like the name after about a year, but they were called raid teams. So we set up raid teams. That was in the initial congressional language and everything. Raid teams.
Oh wow.
RAID was an acronym for Rapid Assessment Initial Detection.
Easy.
But it sounded too like offensive military stuff. So they changed the name to Civil Support Teams. So anyway, I'll just use the term CST. So on these CSTs, so I'm in the Pentagon as a brand new major, just coming back, bunch of training, and we're doing our own little FTXs and trying to figure this stuff out. And we're building our network with the FBI and the EPA.
Oh, sure.
And the governor's office, emergency management folks. And even along the way, we're getting some hits like mission calls. Oh. Hey, we got a white suspicious powder, blah, blah, blah. Can you deploy your team to, it was because they had a short circuit authority basically that most DOD units would never have.
Yeah.
Because again, it was kind of written in the legislation from Congress. We're building these teams so you can support local law enforcement. They're not warfighting assets per se. They are built to do domestic operations.
Yeah.
So we had we had easier authority. So the FBI could literally call, which they did multiple times, even in the first 18 months.
Huh.
We met them on scene with a mobile lab to determine what the white powders are and the other stuff. We had sophisticated machines and tools and measuring equipment. Really a neat capability, actually. So anyway, so that kept me busy for a couple years.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, and it was interesting and it was fun. And, but after 2 years, by the way, toughest strain on my marriage at this point in my entire Army career. So I'm now a major. I've been doing, the Army thing, active duty, Guard, and the Guard is this whole nother dimension of challenge, right?
It is.
Because you're working the weekends and not just one a month, no matter what, especially if you're a commander. Yeah. So, but this phase was the toughest phase on my marriage. So my wife is, we have 4 small children at this point, and I'm gone to schools all the time. Oh, so it's not like I'm off fighting a war.
No.
So it's more difficult for the wife to say, you're gone all the time, and I got these 4 kids at home, and this is really tough. And you're telling me you're going to some Fort Detrick to go study something or what? Like, yes, dear, I got to go again. And it's just back to back to back to back. So that was the strain on the marriage. I was surprised by that. I was surprised.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Surprised on?
Just as a soldier, you think, okay, if I deploy to war, it's going to be tough on my family. You don't think about going to schools.
Right.
It just kind of blindsides.
But you're just not home.
Yeah, you're just not home.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a side note. And we survived it fine, thank God. But it was a surprise to me, actually. You just don't think about that stuff.
I think it's surprising when it hits you because I never went to a war.
Yeah.
But I certainly went out to my share of FTXs.
Yeah.
And like when I was in Schofield, you know, you go out to the field for a little bit, but you would do 2 or 3 rotations because we were artillery to go over to the Big Island.
Yeah.
And those were 3 weeks at a time. And so you're like, well, I'm not deployed, but I'm sure gone from home a lot.
Sure gone a lot.
You know?
It's kind of the same thing for the spouse,
Yeah.
It's just gone. So anyway, we got through that, thank God. And everything's great. I mean, it made our marriage stronger in the end for sure, but that wouldn't surprise me. I'd say just an interesting footnote for me. But we did that, and that was a challenging time. I'm on a short mission call. I think at this point we just
real world.
Yeah, real world. I think at this point we just have pagers. But everyone has a pager with a digital readout,
right?
So you can type basic responses. But not everyone had the iPhone back then. It just wasn't there yet.
Wasn't there yet.
And so we're all on pagers.
Flip phones, maybe.
We're all on like a 4-hour recall, like forever.
Oh,
Imagine living your life under that.
Well, yeah, there's no other team to turn it all over.
There's really no backup team. So it was really kind of a tough period of life for just readiness. And, you're always on the green ramp.
Yeah.
You're always on the green ramp, which, as you know, is a term for the 82nd Airborne is ready brigade being on notice. But so that was difficult, but it was good. It was rewarding. I didn't really want to do it much after 2 years because, I mean, not only the short leash stuff got sort of old fast, but you're starting to just do the same kind of, respond to the scene, get control, help, plug into the normal on-scene command structure because it's run by either law enforcement or a fire department or the FBI or whatever. And you do that so many times. It's like, okay, great. And then you're doing decon. It's like a lot of just.
Did you ever get into, like, say, Denver city planners? And you sit down with them as like, look, if you get attacked, here are some initial plans.
Yes, we did that with the State Office of Emergency Management. We did it with the Colorado Springs Office of Emergency Management. So we were all involved in that. In fact, one of the things we were really proud of is the relationship here in Denver with our civil support team and the supported agencies, which were numerous. Like I said, FBI, EPA, you name it, local Denver police, whatever, were just stellar relationships.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
kind of the model for the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really, really good and satisfying, but you can only play in a kiddie pool for so long with, decon and washing and donning and doffing equipment and running around in, full hazmat suits. I'm an aviator. I still want to go out and do my Army work fighting stuff.
Yeah.
So 2 years was great. I mean, I have no regrets. It was a wonderful experience.
But it looks good on the record too.
Yeah, I mean, that's an added bonus, but I actually liked the challenge.
How did you maintain your flying status?
I didn't.
Oh,
no, I was on non-flying billet. I didn't get flight pay, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't fly. So I was basically out of flying for 2 years. I came back. They offered me a job coming back, and I think at this point I'm plugging in as the Battalion S3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah, I was assistant 3, so I knew a little
Where
bit
was
about
battalion
the 3.
located?
Buckley.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Most of the battalion was at this point, the entire battalion was at Buckley.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the flight companies, the maintenance company, the headquarters company, they're all at Buckley.
All
so
right.
that's nice.
Yeah.
You don't always get that in the Guard. You could be spread out.
No, that's true.
Pretty wide.
Yeah, different cities.
Yeah. So it was good. So I take over as a Battalion 3, and I've got a new commander, Joel Best, who was the HAATS commander for years up at Eagle. So, I mean, he knows his business.
Yeah.
He knows aviation. He's a great pilot, well-respected guy. And so we hit the ground running. We were quite a team.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because he had that warrior mentality, too. And
that's cool.
So we were out training.
It's weird how few opportunities present themselves where you're just like, yes, let's go, sir. We're running.
Exactly.
Yeah, right?
And he's holding you back instead of,
right.
spurring you on.
Right.
So it was a great relationship. It was a good couple of years as his Battalion 3. A lot of good FTXs, a lot of good, realistic, good training stuff. And then I had to leave aviation again. Now this is kind of a Guard thing.
No. Yeah.
Because, I've done the Battalion S3, which is, in my opinion, the most difficult job in a battalion staff, because you're running the operations and planning for the whole battalion. So after that, there was really nowhere for me to go. So they made me the headquarters commandant of the Joint Force Headquarters in Colorado. So this is an interesting step for me because, I was pretty much in aviation, totally understood aviation as best as a young major can, I guess.
Sure.
But now I get plucked out and put as the commander of the headquarters of the state. Now, I want to make sure your listeners know, not in a humbling sense, I say commander because it's what you are on paper, but every single one of the sections that you manage and have administrative command over is run by an 06, a colonel. Yeah. So it's a different kind of command. I mean, you know what an headquarters command is, but some of your listeners don't. So you're dealing with all of the administrative requirements, not behavioral problems, but the disciplinary requirements. You're doing all the stuff
so that processing all that.
Yeah, so that the headquarters can just function without all the distraction of logistics, supply, administration. We ran the supply room, all that stuff. Yeah. But the great thing about that, as far as developing an officer, is now I understand how the headquarters works. I understand how they think, how they plan, what's important to them, how they resource. So it was great learning experience for a guy who's going to hopefully do other things.
Did you, at this point, ever thought, like, how far can I go? Did you just say, did you have a thought of like, I'm going to stay until they kick me out? And if I make it high, then great. If not, I enjoy what I'm doing.
I think probably a variation of that was, I'm going to do this as long as I find it fulfilling, fulfilling and challenging enough that it keeps me going. Yeah. And I truly mean those words, fulfilling and challenging. If it's not challenging, I'm not interested, because I don't do this to collect a paycheck. You didn't do it to collect a paycheck.
Sure, right.
There's something about military service that we loved.
Yeah, that drives you.
It drives you. Yeah. And so I want that drive. And the day I lose that drive, I'm done. Yeah. Right? That was my whole philosophy.
Because it's unfair to the soldiers you're
leading.
Exactly. If you're not in it.
Exactly. So I got it. Again, doesn't mean I have to love it every day, because some jobs you really have their moments. But overall, I like this. Yeah. I'm making a difference. I feel like I'm helping. I'm somehow building some readiness, some war fighting potential. If I could say that, I'm good. I'm staying. That was
Joint Forces Headquarters.
Yeah, every state has a Joint Force Headquarters.
So is that all the National Guard?
It's all the National Guard.
Okay.
Yep. It's run by a 2-star in every state who reports to the governor.
Oh, all right.
So the governor of every state has an adjutant general. Yeah. And that adjutant general is a member of the governor's staff, just like his, secretary of head of the, you name it, the Department of Public Safety. Uh-huh. It's the same cabinet level governor job, right?
Yeah. When you say that.
It's like the state treasurer. Well, no, it's an elected position, I think. But you get the point. The cabinet level office of the governor. Yeah. But he is also the commander of the Guard, both Army and Air, in each state. Yeah. So that 2-star has a headquarters because he or she has to run, resource, manage, track, train, provision, and basically account for all this military property, units, training. So when the balloon goes up, that governor can say to in this case, FORCECOM, because FORCECOM, as you know, is providing units to warfighting commanders. So FORCECOM goes to National Guard Bureau in D.C. and says, hey, TAG of Colorado, can you plan for an aviation battalion to deploy next year? We need this type. Yeah. You have it. Can you do it? The governor talks to the adjutant general then talks to his governor and says, sir, we have this request from DOD. And, it's all official stuff too. But that's how it works. So
the task flows.
And the task flows, and the Guard unit does its final training and goes to Mob Station and deploys.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really works. Yeah. And now after all these years of practice, it works really well.
Right.
It works really well. In fact, you could say it's never worked better in the nation's history.
Probably not. No.
Except I would say in 1775 when the militias converged on the Redcoats marching to Concord. then it worked really well too.
Yeah, that task was knocking on doors saying, "Hey, we need you to
And it
assemble."
worked.
Right.
Man, it worked.
Yeah.
That's a story in and of itself, but it's pretty impressive. So yeah. I was commanding this headquarters detachment essentially in the Joint Force headquarters. So I got to learn about all that stuff and how it all works, which is just a really neat opportunity.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, because that is your headquarters. Everybody needs to know how your headquarters thinks, how they plan, what's important to them, how do they prioritize. It's all good learning.
And then you throw in the guard side of that.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of different ways that they run versus the active duty.
Yeah. So I did that assignment. And I'm not going to bore you with every assignment because that's not the intent.
When'd you get Lieutenant Colonel, sir?
So here's my lucky break. So I'm doing a couple of non-aviation assignments. And they are going to hold a command selection board for the next Aviation Battalion commander.
Oh.
So of course I'm throwing my hat in that ring.
Yeah.
So I go through the interview process with a bunch of some already lieutenant colonels, and I'm a major promotable. So Department of Army has said Chris Petty is ready. He's met all the requirements.
Just need to bill it.
And that's a challenge in the Guard.
Yes, it is.
Sometimes. So of course I'm going to compete for this. Lo and behold, out of like 8 applicants that are all qualified, I get the selection.
Really?
And I'm the youngest guy. It's not my turn. So it bent a few noses out of joint.
I bet.
But that's fine. That's the way it should be. So I got my chance to command this battalion in the one I took to Iraq in 2005.
Wow.
Yeah, highlight of my career. I mean, really. I mean, even though I went on and did some interesting things.
Yeah.
As a warrior, it's the highlight of your career when you could take a battalion.
Absolutely.
To go and do real combat operations in a theater. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was an exciting ride.
If you don't mind me asking, real quick, just because it's a seminal moment for all of us of our age.
Yeah.
9/11.
Yeah.
Were you commanding the joint?
No. 9/11, I can remember it distinctly like most of your listeners can. I was in the ready room at our CST, at our civil support team.
Okay.
Because there was so few teams that were certified as ready.
Yeah.
At this point, on 9/11/2001, and maybe I have my dates off with you, but I don't think so. 9/11/2001, our team is like one of 2 or 3 certified to do the mission nationally.
Wow.
So this is all they got.
Yeah.
So we are like in the day room, ready room. It's like a normal morning.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to do some training and, whatever we're doing that day. And also wait for the phone calls because we were getting some by this point. And I remember coming into the ready room and the guys are glued to the TV because the first plane had just crashed into the first World Trade Center building. And so, I mean, I just remember distinctly turning around and saying, well, not the first plane, once the second plane hit. Because we all thought, and I'm an aviator. I'm thinking, okay, well,
it's happened before.
Could happen,
it's happened in the past,
the pilot passes out.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's possible. But the second plane, no.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. This is a terrorist act. This is something unusual. And I'm basically saying, okay, guys, pack your bags. We're going to get on a C5 probably within 8 hours and be out on a plane to New York City. So we were planning for it.
Sure.
And I think we got a call to be ready after we had that little conversation internally. The plane never came because I think they scraped together the team that was getting ready in New York and got them there in time to help assess
how timely
how hazardous the cloud was and all that kind of stuff. Because our instruments could tell what was in that cloud, debris.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was really high speed stuff. So we didn't go, but anyway, that's where I was.
Yeah.
So I hope I didn't have my dates too off with you.
No, that's
but
just
the general storyline still holds.
And then you realize, nobody in the country was flying, so you weren't going to go anyway, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we would go on a C5 though. We would definitely be going on a C5.
Who pinned you on Lieutenant Colonel?
Like the official pinning?
Sure.
My wife.
Oh, good.
Yeah, of course.
Who was your officer presiding on it?
It was my brigade commander, Dana Capizella.
Oh, yeah.
Dana Capizella. Huh. She's the one that kind of made that final selection on taking a chance on this younger promotable 04 to command.
Yeah.
So I'll always thank her for that.
Wow.
Yeah, she took a little bit of a risk on me. I guess.
You got to be on cloud nine.
Yeah,
right?
cloud nine. So I take command of this battalion. It's a dream come true because, I wasn't really thinking about going to war at this point. I'm just thinking, hey,
way too much, right?
I'm a battalion commander, man.
Yeah.
This is the dream. I had this dream at West Point.
Because now you're looking at readiness stats. Now you're looking at manning stats.
Everything. It's all mine. It's like, okay, now I've got a
You
battalion.
may not have hand reseated anything,
Right.
but now you're responsible.
That's
for
right. Everything. So that was exciting. And but pretty soon after I took command, we heard rumors that we were going to be on the call list to go to Iraq.
Cool.
Yeah. And then it just came to pass because as I mentioned, National Guard Bureau headquarters in Washington, the normal unit that was going to be called was in Utah. They weren't ready. They were going through a reorganization that we were too. Same transformation of an aviation battalion because it's Army wide.
Yeah.
But they weren't going to be ready, which is no sin against them.
It happens.
But they said, "Hey, can we defer?"
Okay.
Can we defer?
Yeah.
And Guard Bureau said, "Well, basically, let me check." So they called the next date with one of these special. They're called GSABs, General Support Aviation Battalions, and the reason they're so special and sought after is because they have medevac Blackhawks, regular Blackhawks like assault Blackhawks and command Blackhawks, and Chinooks.
Wow.
So you got this package of aviation that's like an aviation brigade in miniature. So every theater commander everywhere wants a GSAB because they're special.
Of the versatility, right?
Nobody else has it. You got medevac, which you have to have medevac, right? I got medevac, regular assault and command Blackhawks and Chinooks. I want one of those. I got to have one of those. So anyway, there weren't enough GSABs in the Army. So we knew we were going to get called.
Okay.
The question is, would I get called when I was the commander?
And you did.
And I did. I just got lucky. Honestly, just lucky.
Wow.
So that story, Marty, would take hours. I'm writing a book on that story.
Really?
Yeah, I am.
Good.
Because it is a story of a bunch of American patriots who are part-time guardsmen spread around the country. Because by this time, this battalion with its reorganization is now in 6 states.
Yeah.
So we've got to.
I remember that.
We've got to bring Nebraska in. They're half of our medevac company.
Oh, okay.
Is in Nebraska. We got to bring them in. We got to bring half of our Chinook company from Minnesota in.
Oh, man.
And as luck would have it, as bad luck would have it, sort of, our Alpha company, which is our standard Blackhawk company, had deployed earlier because the 101st needed a Blackhawk company. So they augmented their aviation brigade with one of our Blackhawk companies. Oh, so they were pulled out of our formation before we got the alert.
Yeah.
So now I'm plugging in Utah's Alpha company because Utah felt compelled, right? Because they were the ones that bowed out.
But they had their
Alpha company ready, and they were fine. They were excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's the company I flew with most because I'm a Blackhawk guy.
Okay.
So those guys, I got to know backwards and forwards. Excellent aviation unit.
Wow.
So I'm glad Utah was ponied up that unit. Anyway, that is
what a challenge.
That is a story in and of itself. I don't know how deep you want to go on this one, but I am writing a book. It's my journal of that experience.
Well, we'll assume you got it all together and you went over. So we'll wait for the other experience and we'll do a interview just about your book.
It's the problem is with Battle Digest, it might take a few years, but
that's okay.
But I'm committed to doing it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good book, especially if you're an aviator. You're going to be, I think.
Well, but you pull in so many. I mean, aviation. Everybody knows regular or active duty.
Yeah.
Regular Army.
Yeah.
But very few understand how the Guard and the Reserve mobilize and get together and go do that.
That's
and
right.
the challenges.
The challenges of that are immense, but yet because of these experienced aviators, because the Guard at this point, and I think throughout most of the history of aviation, actually in the Guard, you've got more experience in the Guard. You got more experienced pilots.
Right.
I mean, these are people that fly for a living.
Right.
They fly the Channel 9 news copter when they're not drilling on the weekend.
Right.
they're flying for Continental Airline, or what was
Well, I
Continental
remember
Airlines.
the 140th Fighter Wing up there always was winning awards.
Yeah.
Because it was the same group of pilots.
Right.
Always.
So you
going
have
out
this
there.
great talent.
Yeah.
You just got to build the structure around it and the systems to really integrate it into Army operations, which was half the fun for me because I like that stuff. But it was a rewarding, total roller coaster. And I'll just give you a couple highlights. So as luck would continue to strike on my watch, so we get to Iraq and
2005?
2006.
2006,
So
okay.
mid 2005, we get the alert that we're going to go. So we get the train up. I'm at a whole nother story. So we get mobilized to Fort Hood.
Okay.
We're at Fort Hood. I'm at Fort Hood for 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it was the first ever combat aviation brigade deployed from the Guard. So I was one of 5 battalions coming under the 36th Combat Aviation Brigade from Texas.
All right.
So we got all the attention that the Army could possibly muster in helping us deploy. If you get my drift.
I do.
Oh, they were helping everywhere.
Oh,
so it dragged on and on and on. Some of it was very good, but I've got some real critique on, some of it was overkill.
I don't know what that is. I've talked to some of my other buddies too, right? When you go from regular Army and you're talking Guard Reserve, I don't know why when I was regular Army, I was like, those guys.
Yeah.
You think they're second class,
Yeah, you
right?
think. Yeah. So did I. For a short
I don't know
time.
why we do that. It's just some
It's
crazy
part of our natural
order.
pride.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm an active duty Army guy.
Right.
We have to be better than the Guard because they only train 39 days a year, 49 days a year.
Right.
We have to be better. It's natural.
Yeah.
I did it too.
I'm doing it full time. You get to go home.
They can't be as good
and you're
as
like,
me.
Hold on, guy.
Or I'm not.
He gets to go home to his other job.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Exactly. So it's natural. I hold no grudge with that. I did it too. But what I learned is the Guard is such an amazing value for the dollar.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, you and I both know, and I've done studies on this, I wrote articles on this, that a typical Guard formation at whatever level, unless you're up to like full armor brigades, then the cost is different. But at almost any level, the Guard costs a third.
Sure.
A third of the cost of an active duty unit equivalent.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to argue with you for a second that the active duty unit is going to be better prepared to get on an airplane and go fight. I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
But for a third of the cost
alone,
I can get this unit if it's got good leadership. It's all contingent on good leadership.
Right.
If this unit has good leadership, which means the state really gives a shit,
right,
and the state really cares because they appoint good commanders and all that. If this unit's got good leadership, in 90 days or 60 days, I can get that unit out the door fighting shoulder to shoulder with its active duty equivalent.
Absolutely.
I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
It may not be the 2nd Brigade of the 82nd Airborne. That's not really my point. My point is they are good soldiers, motivated soldiers, pretty damn well trained. They can get out the door in about 90 days with some extra fine tuning, and they're going to be a great damn Army outfit.
Yeah.
Again, contingent on the leadership.
They're a viable force.
They are for a third of the cost.
Right.
I mean, it's the envy of the world, really. Nobody has a Guard structure like we do.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And as budgets get tighter, DOD's resources are going to shrink big time. They're going to get squeezed.
Right.
It's inevitable. The Guard is just such a value for the citizens of this country. So enough of my advertisement. But I was like you. They can't be as good as us. Now, I will say, as I alluded to in my earlier story, they have cultural ups and downs, just like the Army did. Yeah. Remember the Army after Vietnam? I mean, come on.
It was horrible up until
full of drugs and race
riots,
riots. And So everybody ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
But after 9/11, the Guard, I mean, the dead weight got forced to the sidelines.
Absolutely.
You couldn't keep up.
Right.
So the Guard's a different thing.
And the fact that those who were willing in the Guard to take some of those, like in lieu of assignments to go over there. Yeah. I mean, I think most of our convoys were Guard.
Yeah.
Guard or Reserve.
Exactly. They wanted to go.
Yeah.
So anyway,
if we ever have time, I'll tell you my poor guard story.
Yeah, there are those too.
Our roundup artillery brigade.
Yeah.
So
and I'm not going to pretend that they're not out there either, for sure.
No.
But again, it's all contingent on that commander.
Oh, absolutely.
Back home. It's amazing. I've learned that is clear as day for me.
Right.
But the reason I went on that tangent was the other thing that makes this story very interesting for me, and maybe if we can get into it more later, is the mission that we drew, because we were part of this theater aviation brigade.
Mm-hmm.
So we reported to the NMCI, the Multinational Command Iraq commander. So the divisions were managing battle space, right?
Right.
So you had the 25th Division up north managing, and their aviation brigade was based in Spiker. And they were doing all their operations out of Tikrit, Spiker.
Oh, yeah.
But we were based in Balad, working for the theater, MNCI.
Oh,
and
interesting.
And I, of all people, lucky as I am sometimes, my mission set when I get to Iraq is not the typical missions of a command brigade that's like flying the VIPs around and doing some resupply.
Yeah.
Guess who I support for the entire year? Joint Special Operations Command out of Balad.
You're kidding.
So I drew the ace of spades in my assignment in Iraq. It's like, you mean, and quite honestly, I'm going to teeter on the edge here. Task Force 160 was just out of juice. I mean, the demand for Task Force 160th was exceeded the supply by a large margin.
Oh.
So the Joint Special Operations Command put together their own structure to do the things they did in Iraq, which I know I got to be careful about talking about. But we became not Task Force 160th. We became sort of an augmentation, because honestly, Task Force 160th couldn't do it.
Sure.
They didn't have the airframes or the men and women to do it.
Oh, yeah.
So we got that mission.
That much.
Yeah, it was that much. So for a battalion commander going to war as an aviator, you couldn't have asked for a more challenging mission. So we are doing massive air assault operations at night across the entire Iraq battle space, supporting Joint Special. I'll tell you what, I'll use McChrystal's language, because he got his vetted by, for the task force. Okay. So I'm doing air assaults across Iraq every third night.
Wow.
Massive air assaults with, C-130s circling, fighter planes above, lighting up the LZs.
Jeez.
I'm doing that for a year, like one of these every 3 or 4 nights. So you talk about a battalion of aviators just giving it the all.
Yeah.
This is a guard unit.
I mean, they already burned out SOAR. So now,
So this is a guard unit in the middle of what I would say is the most intense part of the war, doing one of the most technical operations of the war to support the task force.
Yeah. Yeah.
To use General McChrystal's term.
Sure.
So McChrystal's the one who wrote my award.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
Right. So this is just luck. This is just luck of a battalion commander with a decent unit that's ready to do the mission.
Yeah. Well, but you were ready for the moment.
We were ready for the moment as best you can be when the Army gives you the resources to do it and leaders take it seriously, which our guys did. We were ready to do it.
It's where I tried to go to Panama. They took the other company. We were waiting to go to Desert Storm. They didn't take our division.
Luck.
And it is.
It's luck.
It's weird how those play out.
I will never pound my chest too hard because I was a month away, 2 months away from never being able to go to combat my entire life.
That's right.
As a guy who went to West Point, as a guy who had every intention to be a lifelong soldier.
You were stuck at NTC.
I was stuck at NTC. If I wouldn't have got off active duty, here's how the cards of,
isn't that crazy?
The hand of God, the destiny.
Yeah.
If I hadn't left NTC and got off active duty, I never would have been a commander in combat.
Wow.
But my point is, I'm not a chest pounding guy because I just got lucky. My timing when I got picked for command, that battalion 5 months later was alerted. There I go.
That's wonderful.
The boss that I was his S3 for
Yeah.
would have been a fantastic battalion commander. And I know it still bothers him that he wasn't the guy,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
I just got lucky.
Well, you're humble about that, but obviously your performance put you in some positions that you could take advantage of.
Yeah, you have to be prepared,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? Opportunity meets
That's saying, yes.
Yeah.
I know.
luck equals opportunity plus
Preparedness.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You got to have the opportunity though.
Well, you do.
Yeah.
But
So anyway, it's a great story. It's a fantastic story of a bunch of aviators and maintainers. So one night, I'll give you one snippet.
Okay.
So one night, we're deep in the operations, and now you know what I mean by deep. I mean we're going out every night, and the guys that are doing all the round robin missions, typical command and control, ferrying shuttles around, ferrying people around, soldiers to different FOBs and doing basic resupplies and all that. Blackhawks are flying all over Iraq every day. So when these guys are getting up in the morning to start their mission planning at 6 a.m., they're walking by our helicopters on the ramp going, they're caked with mud, like mud inside the airframe 3 inches deep.
Whoa.
Because of the soldiers getting in and out of muddy LZs. And these guys are just looking at our helicopters like, what the hell are these guys doing every night?
Sure.
And it was just that way every single day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your op tempo was
It was
through
crazy.
the roof.
It was crazy. In fact, I calculated, because I kept track of all the numbers of missions. This little battalion of, I think at the time we had 46 helicopters total. And that counts medevac. So they weren't doing air assaults. This battalion inserted 15,000 paratroopers on objectives at night in a year.
Wow.
One little battalion, 15,000
What a
troops.
fantastic number to come up with. My God.
I mean, one night in Mosul, we put 550 troops in downtown Mosul within 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. 550 troops
Jeez,
from the 82nd Airborne in downtown Mosul.
That's air mobile, air
at
cap
night.
stuff.
Yeah,
right
it was big time. So,
Golly.
I mean, it was.
No, that's beyond what they
it was exciting. It was a very rewarding experience, actually. We had our setbacks, and I know looking back at the war, we all go, "Well, was that such a great idea? Maybe not." But at the time,
you got to fight.
At the time, right? I'm fighting the fight.
Yeah.
I'm in the good fight, and we are kicking ass, enabling our ground guys to go do good things.
That would be a hell of a book.
So one night, I get back off of one of these missions, and I go to the maintenance. What were they called? You remember those big aircraft shelter HAATS? It was called a HAATS.
Oh, a
It
HAATS.
was the old aircraft concrete.
Yeah.
Your listeners have seen pictures of these because they're all bombed out. They have a precision bomb hole through the roof with the rebar hanging down. So anyway, our maintenance company, Delta Company, is in this thing, and they're just busting ass every night because the demand for helicopters is outrageous. I have to have so many helicopters flying every day because if I don't, I'm going to hear about it from General McChrystal. Okay, I mean that's what I'm doing, and. So anyway, I go there one night, and these guys, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's regular shift. They're kicking ass. I get everyone together for a little formation, and I'm just like, "Hey guys, I just want to tell you about the mission tonight." And no one had ever done this to them before.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of obvious, right? I'm the commander. I should do it. So I get them together, and I say, "I just want to tell you about the mission last night and what we did because of you guys, because of what you guys are doing to keep these helicopters flying." And then the incredible op tempo you guys are supporting.
Man.
I said, last night we did this and this and this. And we flew these 14 hostages who are about to get killed in this little dungeon of torture. We flew them to safety. And we also seized this blood money on the objective. Our infantry guys did it. I mean, not us, but that's what we enabled. And I said, when we flew off the objective, here's a bag of Iraqi dinars. This was seized from that house last night.
Oh, man.
I said, I'm going to hand everybody a few of these coins. And I know it doesn't mean much. It's not like a lot of money because Iraqi dinar is like worth a 100th of a penny or something like that. Right. But to give these guys a coin, a few of these coins, real money, hard money, off of that objective last night from the mission that they supported, just connected them to the war.
That is so
because they're working their ass off.
That's so smart morale-wise.
Yeah, little things like that.
Yeah.
I tried to sprinkle through the battalion wherever I could. I had to go visit medevac sites far off.
That's so good.
But it's so rewarding. It was such an experience.
But for some, that's a big hassle to go do that.
Of course, because I just got back from a mission. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Tired. I want to go to bed because I got to get up in 8 hours, 6 hours.
Right.
But yeah, no, it was.
That's awesome.
But there were stories like that just I'll never forget. I know it meant something to those guys.
On behalf of General Petty, I'd like to thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please leave a like and a comment and share the podcast with someone else. And as always, make sure to download the next episode for more service origin stories. So until next time, Taj! Whoo! Fall out!